Coming this Sunday, only on Patreon.
One of the things that I could say about Gary is that when I first started here, he always said to me, you know, it's a boys club, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be hard for you. The only fucking one that treats me any different than everybody else is Gary. It's his boys club that makes it that way. He includes Jason, Steve, Will, and John, and that's his boys club. It's gotten to the point where if Gary has something to tell me...
Okay, a little more, guys.
Gary can't even tell me. Gary will tell Jason and tell Jason to tell me. And half the time, Jason forgets to tell me, and then nobody fucking tells me, and all of a sudden, I'm the asshole.
All right, wait a second. So I got to stop this because
Now, and this is where I take issue because you task, like, if I'm Gary and I task Jason to tell Tracy, you're adding an extra person into a communication that doesn't have to happen when you have an intercom and a phone, and at this point, you know, cell phone or whatever. You could easily message her yourself really quickly and just say, hey, could you take care of this? And she gets back, I got it, you know, whatever.
Right. And if this is a problem that has happened multiple times, wouldn't you change the way you're doing things at some point? Why would you just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result?
Because you haven't been called a piece of shit yet properly by the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of accusations.
I'm taking notes here.
I see.
I really am.
You gotta answer every charge.
First thing is that it's a boys club, and I already forgot the accusation.
Okay.
Well, it's the boys club. He only talks to John, Jason, Will.
All right, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
So I probably stop in Tracy's office once a week because here's the thing with Tracy. The word of the day for Tracy is respect.
Right.
You either respect her. If you don't respect her enough, you disrespect her.
Right.
Okay, and you're gonna hear some buoy. You're gonna hear some buoy computations here, guys, that make him a fucking 78. Sam.
But if she's not respecting the job you're doing and she's making these complaints, which I'm sure he's heard about and just not with this much force, then why she should feel disrespected. She told you she wants to be included. You're not including her. Yeah. She's told you she doesn't like the line of communication that's not getting to her, and you don't change it. So you don't respect her because you're not listening.
That's right.
Now she has to get on the radio and fucking call you a piece of shit.
Yeah, well, he's trivializing her importance in the organization, and he's kind of basically he's minimizing and patronizing her for, you know, the purposes of what? I don't know. To show her where her place is in the organization. That's the only reason to do that.
I know. Yeah.
So, I mean, and his defense is so apeless and stupid. Anyway, you'll hear it for yourself, guys.
You know, you know what I mean?
There's no other way.
And my feeling is that if you hang around with Tracy long enough, you're going to disrespect her because it's impossible to give her the amount of respect that she requires on a daily basis. No, it's not impossible. And she's only going after you and Scott, the engineer, for one specific thing for him. But she has a litany of things with you, Gary. And then
this is a straw man's argument. So instead of actually addressing the problem, he's now going to create a straw man argument where he's saying there's never enough respect I can give her, so I shouldn't give her any. And who cares? Yeah. Who cares? Yeah.
And he's even worse when she comes in.
It's not to be taken seriously. That's what he's basically saying.
Yes.
Because I'm going to make up this argument, so this is not to be considered serious, actual conversation. Fuck him.
What he's done, he's doing a low rent version of Howard, who's already a 79. And he's learned from the master bullshitter, but he's not learned well because he's giving arguments that aren't, because Howard's horrible when it comes to having to defend a position. So, Bowie, you think he'd be any better? There's no way.
No.
Yep.
Sooner or later, you're going to disrespect her.
Right.
So I like Tracy. I stop by her office. I'd say once a week. I sit down and I just chat with her. How's everything going? What'd you do this weekend? You know, how are you?
Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
And the whole. I love Gary, but you know that Don Rickles shit doesn't fly. I love Gary, but here's why he's an asshole. I know that with the boys club thing, one of the things that she's mad about, which I may have come up in the show later.
Okay, I'm gonna let this one go.
Was I have a ski house, a very, very tiny, the smallest ski house you can imagine, the size of your thumb. Howard, no jokes aside, it's a kind of ski house where if somebody farts upstairs, you can hear it downstairs, right?
Right.
I had me, John Hine, Will, and Jason invited everybody to go skiing. I didn't invite Tracy.
Okay, now Gary's not really giving all the proper information. I believe he rents it. He doesn't own it, so that's a big deal. But either way, let's continue with this.
Probably one of the biggest reasons I didn't invite Tracy is because the upstairs is one large room with 2 twin beds and 2 pullouts. The guys were up there. It was like the Three Stooges. You know, everybody's in their underwear. People were farting. Jason snored all night. They blamed it that John Hein was snoring all night. It would have been unbelievably uncomfortable.
Except for Howard.
I wouldn't want to go to that, but at least make the offer.
That's it. That's what exactly I was thinking last night when I was cutting these.
For Tracy to sleep in that group of guys. It's like,
well, I think it would be inappropriate. You're right.
So then I knew that she was upset about that. So because of that, again, this is how much I think about it. I joined the Friars Club, haven't been there once yet.
Right.
So I thought to myself, let me get a bunch of guys. I always said I want to get the group together. Let's go to the Friars Club. So I put together a group of people to go to the Friars Club, which was John, Will, Jason, Steve Brandano, JD, and Tracy.
Right.
Okay, a little more.
I picked a day, and the day came, and I had something came up. Something came up, actually, I had to do with my mother, and I canceled. Apparently, I'm a piece of shit for that.
Yes, because you didn't reschedule, you fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, you did. You made an outing that was going to be inclusive and probably would make her happy. It would make me happy. And you canceled with no, we're going to do it next week.
Right. And then it never happens.
So then she gets nothing. She doesn't get the ski invitation, and now this is gone. And it doesn't. So
she's supposed to be amazed by the thought of it happening?
Oh, yeah.
Idiot.
Oh.
The accusation about how I don't talk to her, I talk to Jason. Sometimes we're in here on Tuesdays and we're going over stuff. And you go, do we have to have a meeting today? And I go, well, if I go over some stuff with you, I'll say, I can go over stuff with you right now so we don't have to have a meeting. So in my head, before I forget, I'll say to Jason, make sure you let Tracy know there's no meeting. Apparently, me not walking down the hallway or picking up the phone is a sign of disrespect. But again, I'm just...
It is.
Everybody...
You could send an email.
Yes, personal contact. That's all it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would be really confused if everybody in my office knew something and somebody had to tell me versus me getting an email from my director or something. I'd be like, why didn't he tell me? That's weird.
Well, the other thing is when you assign someone to tell, like, so Jason goes to Tracy and says, Gary told me to tell you that. First of all, you're demeaning Jason because he's now an errand boy. And second of all, you're demeaning Tracy because she's not good enough to hear from you personally. That's essentially what you're saying. She's not on a high enough level. She doesn't deserve any of my actual time.
And if it was, if it was like this all the time, but he does sometimes come down to her office and tell her things. So to me, it just seems like a haphazard office.
Right.
And who's at the head of it? Gary.
Right. And Gary's not been, this isn't the first time he's explained and shown that he's had horrible communication skills. And I don't mean simply the way he explains things. That's bad enough. Those situations are horrible as they, on their own. But he's explained, like, if there's the lack of communication within that office, as evidenced by the summit video as well. That was the nail in Gary's coffin pretty much. But this is what happens when you put someone in a job that they have no business being holding that position.
Well, I was just going to say most of the reason why Marcy came in and all of these organizational, that was mainly what the summit was about, was the organizational problem in the office. So you can see that because of the way Gary ran things is why Marcy exists.
Yes,
and
but
if
also,
he would have listened to Tracy back then and maybe got his arms around the problem, there would be no Marcy.
But also because of the lack of communication from the top of the food chain. Howard being so incommunicado, and I don't want to meet people for meetings and get it done and don't tell me about this or whatever. So if you can't talk to the boss and you can't get his okay, you're living in a state of fear. Is this bit okay? Is that bit okay? I have to guess now what he wants.
Yeah, it's essentially flowing from Howard, this disunity and disorganization.
Absolutely.
Knows everything that it
He's trying to facilitate you, John.
For me to walk out of here and go tell her there's no meeting now takes away the 2 minutes I have with you to go over the stuff to make sure there is no meeting.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
and that's on Howard. That's Howard's fault because he won't communicate with Gary. So Gary's rushed to get this 2 minutes, which is, and fuck Gary. What about the rest of the time during the day when you have to get a hold? You can get a hold of Tracy because she's probably there, whatever later than Gary.
They're all sitting in those cubicles or him sitting in his office. There's plenty of time.
Right. And even though she explained in that Shitheads podcast that she was upstairs, like on a different floor, that still doesn't mean you don't have already an IM system in place, which people could have used and did use, Moldred or whatever the fuck. So easy as pie.
You're basically, what is she your assistant or?
I call her the office manager. She calls me her boss. I've never treated her like an underling, even though she'll go on and talk how I do. I always feel like we work together. I don't think I ever override her, or I've never yelled at her.
Right.
And I'll say, like, we're having an issue with something. What do you want to do? How do you want to handle that? What do you think is the best way? I always have open communication. I never say, listen, it's my way or the highway. Do what the fuck I say. I've never treated her like that.